Good morning and welcome to Motivational Mornings, the podcast that gets you going before you get going.
Good morning and welcome to Motivational Mornings. My name is Vivi and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Ryan. Today we'll be discussing the book Chasing Black Unicorns by Marek Zmyslowski. Now I may have said it a little incorrectly, but I haven't heard of this name before. Marek is actually someone who's listened to our podcast a few times, and he sent us his personal book, which is Chasing Black Unicorns, for us to read. Overall, we thought this was a fantastic book, and there was a lot of key takeaways. The general gist of this story is how Marek went from living in Poland and growing up in Poland from quite humble beginnings to then founding multiple companies in Africa. Some of the companies you might have heard of was the first one he went from Poland for, which was called Trivago. That was a company aimed to kind of copy what the West was doing with Booking.com and Expedia and giving Africa that ability to book things online. He founded that with, I believe it was called Rocket.com, which is like an incubator company that takes co-founders from all over the world and enables them and gives them the resource to do so. After that went sour, he then tried to go to a different route, founding another hotel company where that was more of a middleman between hotel companies and distributors and getting clients and et cetera, et cetera. Now, obviously that vastly simplifies the whole story, but I highly recommend you check this book out if you are interested in it. It is available on Audible. However, one of the first points, getting right into it, that I found was quite interesting was how he talks about his Mark Twain quote. So Mark Twain gave a quote about 20 years ago or so that stated, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed in the things you didn't do than the ones you did. So sail away from the safe harbor, let the wind catch your sails, dream and discover. And I really appreciated that to start off the book from my perspective, because seeing how Marek grew up in Poland, he definitely valued that. He had a great opportunity in Poland. Things went a little bit sour, after maybe the lifestyle he was living was kind of took into fruition a little bit. But then after, when he got this opportunity, it was a great opportunity. He really just let it go, because at the end of the day, you can't regret things you've tried. You can only regret things you didn't put an effort into. Another point I found was interesting when diving right into the nitty-gritty of the book was when he arrived in Africa, Marek had a couple of things to say about emerging economies that I thought were quite interesting. He said the most important pillars of developing emerging economies are having a strong banking and telecommunications sectors. If you don't have those two things established within an emerging economy, then it's very, very hard and it's almost impossible to get something going. And it's only based on such infrastructure that you can build other businesses and build the economy further, which is quite interesting to think about. Also, I found another interesting thing that he said about businesses in general. He noted that when you're talking about delegating in a business, because initially you want to start off, get all the resources done, can have all the systems in place, and eventually start delegating. But Marek said that have sufficient knowledge in your business and how to operate the systems properly prior to replicating it and then delegating it so others can do it, which seems very trivial, but a lot of, I think, business owners right off the bat start going into delegation mode from day one. I think it's very, very important to dig your feet down deep in the mud and walk through those trenches a little bit to figure out exactly the right systems you want to be delegating. At Motivational Mornings, we're all about self-improvement. And one part that often gets overlooked is recovery. And more specifically, having a good quality sleep. Now, having a good quality sleep helps to keep you sharp and sets you up to dominate and win the day. Now, Mantis Sleep is a company that does sleep masks. And they sent us over a couple of masks. And to be honest, I'm quite surprised by them. Now, I've used many masks in the past myself. And these ones gives you 100% blackout shades because it actually covers your eyes from 360 degrees. Some other features that I've liked is that you can wash it after. So after you get back from a long trip, you can just toss it in the washer and then you have a brand new mask. Now, Mantis Sleep offered our Motivational Mornings community a specific and exclusive codes at checkout. And it's mornings. Feel free to go check them out at mantisleep.com and get your exclusive Motivational Mornings checkout code, which is again, mornings.
one thing I like about the book is the way Merrick writes the book is he matures over time. So his narration voice at the beginning is quite different from the end. Now, when I was initially reading the book, I found that he came across a bit superficial or and immature, and honestly, it was a bit hard to read. And I personally wasn't expecting this. But the way Merrick has written this book is that his narration voice is supposed to represent his mindset at that time. And so that I found quite interesting as I progressed through the book. And now it really made me think, how much has Merrick learned in his journey of these 10 years throughout the book? And then more so, how much have I learned in these 10 years from 10 years ago? And I think that's a really interesting point where we grow so much over time and often we don't realize it. That I think it's important we really go back and reflect and really take the time to think, okay, what do I know now versus what did I know 10 years ago and how have I changed? And not only what accomplishments have I had, but also how my values and mindsets changed. And I think that's one thing I really took away from this book, just from the way he narrated, is I think it's so important to go back and reflect because we really change so much, but often we don't realize that. And I think that's really important. That's something we do. Another point I took away from this book is the power of mistakes and how important it is to have the ability to learn from them. So Merrick made a lot of mistakes throughout this book, but he was always able to take something from those mistakes and then apply it to the future. So first of all, when he was in Poland, he started up these different businesses, and maybe they didn't go quite according to plan, but he's able to take from that and learn from that. And then he went to Africa to start this new business. And again, he had these ideas of how things were going to work. But the thing was, he didn't know anything about Africa. So he had employees in Africa telling him that his new ideas wouldn't work. And he didn't listen. He's like, you know what? I know what I'm doing. I'm going to try it anyways. And what do you think happened? They didn't work. But then after, from all those mistakes, he was able to realize that and change the way he looked at things, change the way he's able to do things. And then his successes started to come. So I don't want to give away the whole story, but it's really interesting to see all the failures he had along the way, but then to see how he used these failures to take advantage of the new opportunity that these failures brought later down the road. And now, it really reminded me of a quote from Bill Gates. I think Merrick even said this in one of his interviews. And Bill Gates said this: success is a lousy teacher. And I think that's so important. I think in order for us to really grow and be successful in the long term, we really need to experience failure and mistakes.
Something else I wanted to discuss, Ryan, was when Merrick talked about Jeff Bezos' quote on how running a company should be. He quotes Jeff Bezos as saying, "We focus our company on factors that never change, such as providing an exceptionally high-quality product or service for an affordable price." Merrick quotes Jeff Bezos saying how, at a certain point, his company Trivago, which was led by Rocket.com, was starting to focus their company principles on fads and factors that do change throughout the market cycles and years, and how that was in completely wrong direction for the company. Merrick goes on to exemplify how important this quote is by saying how Jeff Bezos' quote is so important because customers will always value a very high quality service or product at a reasonable price, and that will never change in the history of time. An additional quote that I thought was quite important that Merrick said also was when he's talking about how you should be innovating, when you should be changing and pursuing new and better things in your company, even if you are doing well. He goes on to say how either you cannibalize yourself in the market or in your business place, or the market will do it. He gave the example of Steve Jobs destroying the iPod by introducing the iPhone. Most people thought he was crazy, but it turned out that he was right. So if you don't take away those kind of things and constantly involve yourself and involve the company and elevate what you're doing, you're going to actually end up imploding within the company itself because you become complacent. And lastly, to finish it off, my last point is when Marek talks about investing your own money into your business. He says, never invest all of your money into one business, regardless of how sure you think it may be. Always try and capitalize all other people's money if you can. Now that wraps up today's episode of Motivational Mornings. If you'd like to check out this book, Chasing Black Unicorns by Marek Zmyslowski, feel free to go to audibletrial.com/motivational mornings to get your free copy of this book. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.